Hey guys, how's it going? This is the Bald Metal Nerd coming at you with another wonderful, fantastic video. In this one, this video is going a little bit of a different direction than what I originally thought. This is going to be a direct comparison of Windows 10, the current version, at least as of this recording, the much maligned October 2018 update, or version 1809 of Windows 10, which is what's currently installed on this laptop, versus Ubuntu 18.04, which is the current LTS, or long-term support version of Ubuntu that was installed on this laptop. What prompted me to actually make this video originally is a little bit different than really what I'm bringing you today. What originally prompted me to make this is, you know, my in-laws run Linux, okay? And the reason I have Linux on their machines is, well, if they didn't run Linux, they would probably constantly give themselves computer viruses, right? So, you know, over the Thanksgiving holiday, went to my in-laws. I was the good son-in-law and updated my in-laws' computer to the latest version of Ubuntu. I don't remember what they were. I guess from 1604 to 1804, right? And when I did that, my in-laws couldn't figure out how to log back into the computer. Yes, as sad as that is, I tried to walk them through it. I tried all sorts of things. Long story short, I had to go all the way back to their house just to put in a fucking password for them. Yes, that's how sad, pathetic it was. I spent about a half hour there with them, you know, the day after Thanksgiving, showing them how to log into the computer. So I got to go, you know, I don't mind visiting them on the holidays, but having to go back directly the next day is kind of a bummer because they live in Dayton and I live, you know, in southeast Indiana, and that's quite a trek. It's about an hour and a half drive one way, so that was absolutely fucking fantastic. So, but long story short, they gave me, you know, my mother-in-law's like, hey, you know, we don't use these laptops, you can take them. So what she essentially gave me, unfortunately I don't have either one anymore of the two. She gave me two laptops. One of the laptops was a really old Acer laptop. It was like my wife's from like 2 laptops ago, hers, and I sold it. It's already gone. I sold it for like, you know, $70 or something. So that's gone. It got sold. And then the other laptop she gave me was a free laptop that they had found or something. I don't know where they got it. It was a Lenovo, but I inadvertently killed that laptop because my in-laws are smokers. So I took the laptop apart, blew some canned air into it, you know, and then I tested it and it worked before I, you know, reassembled it. I, you know, reconnected the cables. It powered on just fine. So I was like, okay, great. And then I go to, you know, and then I snap the case back together, you know, snap, 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 right? And I go to power it on and it doesn't turn on. So I'm like, great. So I pop it back apart again and then it doesn't turn on, you know, after I reseat the cables and everything. So at that point I just kind of gave up, which is kind of a shame because the processor generation in the, quote, laptop that I killed, 2 generations newer than the, it was a, you know, a 4th generation core processor, where this is only a 2nd generation core processor. So that was a little bit of a bummer. You know, and it was totally my fault for killing it off. No doubt about it, but, you know, shit happens, right? Thankfully, nobody paid for that laptop. It's just kind of a bummer that with laptops, they're not, you know, with desktops, they're pretty easily upgradable. Laptops, that's not the case. Generally, the only parts you can use across multiple laptops are the RAM and hard drive. Everything else, for the most part, unless you get extremely lucky and you're, you know, have 2 laptops that are exact same model or series or something, you generally can't use parts across them. So that's a bit of a bummer, but whatever. Anyway, guys, now to get into, I know it was kind of a long intro, I apologize, but In the next part of the video, I'm going to show off some performance, where I really overloaded this machine with Ubuntu installed on it. And I'm going to switch to that as soon as I'm done talking. And then we're going to come back and we'll take a look at this thing under Windows, and then we'll have some final words on the whole thing, and that's it. So let's dive into that next part. Okay guys, I'm going to say a few words here about Linux versus Windows. The Linux distro that I currently have on this machine is Ubuntu 18.04, which is the current long-term support release of Ubuntu. I have just the base install of the OS. The only additional software I've really installed is Chrome, but I haven't done anything else. Now, I did a little bit of an experiment to kind of see how it would perform, just for fun, honestly. And basically what the experiment consisted of was loading up, I don't know, maybe 100 and some odd tabs in two browser windows. One window is a whole bunch of YouTube tabs. The other window is largely, and the computer's completely froze up. And the other window is largely text and image. Oh, okay, it's not completely froze up, but it's certainly really bad performance. In fact, the machine seized up completely for several minutes when I did this. It was locked completely for about 5 or 6 minutes. Keyboard and mouse were completely non-responsive. So I was like, I wonder if this is a quirk of Linux, or, just the fact that I'm really overloading this thing. So I actually did the same experiment on the laptop that I killed. It had less RAM, but essentially did the same thing. I'm going to zoom in a little bit so you can really see the resource monitor here. Almost all the RAM is used up, obviously, and the CPU is pretty much taxed out too. But I think it's an issue with the way that Linux manages resources. I think Windows is actually better at resource management than Linux, because when I have a Windows machine that has actually lesser resources than this machine. It has only, the Windows machine has only 6 gigabytes of RAM, and only a dual core processor, where this is a quad core with 8 gigs of RAM. And it seemed, it just released a bunch of memory, probably because some tabs crashed on it. Who knows, we'll see. But, essentially, Windows, it was slow, but it was never completely non-responsive. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go back to, as I knock the camera around, I'm going to go back to Windows on this machine and do some more testing and see if it holds up any better. And of course, it's going to make a liar out of me, because now that it's freed up some resources, now I'm able to actually launch applications and all that. But that's just because tabs are crashing, not because it's really doing well. But I guess that's one way to do it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a bit more benchmarking. I'm going to test startup, shutdown times, all that kind of stuff, reboot, just for benchmarking purposes. And then I'll compare it with a base install of Windows 10 on this machine. And we'll see really which system has the performance edge between the two OSs. So, yeah, this is turning into quite a little undertaking. So, see you guys in a bit. Alright guys, here I have basically the same number of tabs loaded up on Windows 10. And let's see how it's faring as compared to the Linux portion. Obviously, we've got pretty much full usage of the CPU there. It's pegged at 100%, and almost all RAM is getting used up as well. But, despite that, the system is responsive, fairly. And it never locked up on me. I'm just going to try launching Chrome just to see how, and there it goes. It's working. So, let's do an internet search for some random letters here. Okay, that's not super speedy, but it's not completely locked up either. So let's see how responsive tabs are that I already have open. Not bad at all. For a system that is completely taxed out on resources, performance is good. Now, of course, one thing you can do to improve it is just start closing tabs like nobody's business, right? Boom, 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 boom. Just going to see a bunch of dumb crap that I sometimes look at on the internet. Congratulations. Let's see how much that freed up. Let's see. I didn't free up much, so let's just keep going. But the main point I'm trying to make, guys, is the performance. Obviously, we're switching around, and you know, we're having some pretty good. Oh, you can't even see how quickly I'm switching tabs here. That's my fault, because I had the camera pointed out. The point is, I mean, you just do this, and it's like boom, 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 boom. I mean, it just closes quick. Look at this, real quick. And we freed up a marginal amount of RAM. Let's go ahead and close Chrome down. Fantastic. You know, as far as how quickly or how much this is, how responsive this system still is. So overall, you know, bottom line, this system performs much better under Windows than under Linux. And this is an older system, that's for sure. It's a second generation iCore. This is from probably the fairly early portion of the Windows 7 era. So this machine might be from like, I don't know, 2010, 2011. So it's definitely an older machine. But it runs a lot better, in my opinion, using Windows than Linux. So folks that say that performance is much better in Linux, that might be true for some distros, but it's definitely not true for Ubuntu. And on the old Acer laptop, I actually had Lubuntu on that because that was specifically designed with the, I think it's the LFCE. Correct me in the comments if I'm wrong, but I know it has a desktop environment specifically designed for low-powered machines, and the performance on that was just as piss-poor as with Windows. Whereas this obviously is a better machine than what the Acer was, but performance-wise, Windows is absolutely blowing away Linux in my opinion. So that's that. So back to me for some final words. Alright guys, so what are my final thoughts regarding this whole issue? Well, I said, you know, in my opinion, Windows blew away Linux as far as performance goes. Well, that wasn't an opinion. I mean, that was actual fact. I mean, it was objectively true that, you know, when the system was overloaded, Windows vastly outperformed Linux in its overall performance. At no point did Windows lock up, and even with CPU and RAM pegged at about 100%, it was still relatively responsive. It was still usable, whereas the Linux machine was not. So I also tested, you know, start down and start up and shut down, reboots, all that. Between the two systems, they, you know, the two OSs, they were relatively similar. I think in a few Linux went quicker and a few Windows went faster, but so I would say they were pretty rapid or even as far as that goes. So now idling, Windows does have higher resource usage than Linux, but again, you push Windows more, it'll just move better. I don't know why. Just seems to be a fact. I find this very interesting because you see all sorts of articles on the internet. Oh, if you have an older machine, put Linux on it, it'll perform better. That might be true for some distros, but for Ubuntu, that's certainly not the case. You know, and even Lubuntu, like I said, which is supposedly for low-powered computers, in my opinion, that's just not the case. So anyway, that is it. I'd really be interested to hear, you know, if you guys have experimented with this or not, what you've found. Let me know in the comments below. As always, if you like this, thumbs up. If you hate me, thumbs down, share, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys next time.